Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast between mTwNightEnd versus MorroW here on Steps of War. We have MorroW spawning as the blue Terran player on the top right hand side of Steps of War. Meanwhile, all the way across on the bottom left hand side we have NightEnd spawning as the red Protoss player here on Steps of War. So we're going to go ahead and get this game started and see what exactly the strategies are in fact going to be. Now, one of the things to really want to keep track of on Steps of War is you can't really try to fast expand unless you're Zerg, just because the starting locations are that small. If your opponent tries to mass up any army, besides this one normal checkpoint or this one normal choke point sitting right here, there's really not much you can really do. MorroW opting for a 10 barracks instead of a 10 supply depot, so that barracks will in fact be up a little bit earlier than that standard supply depot. We'll see how that's really going to be affecting anything. For some time, MorroW will not be able to produce SCVs, will not be able to produce or get that economy up and running. So you can already take a look at the harvester count. Both of them, MorroW and NightEnd, both sitting at 11 harvesters. However, currently MorroW is supply locked while NightEnd sitting at 12 over 18 at this stage in the game. Probe now going to be heading up that ramp, and MorroW going to be finishing off that barracks. I haven't seen this build yet. Perhaps he wants to go for an early or going for that earlier orbital command to try to get that economic advantage that way. So both players mining NightEnd a little bit better than MorroW, even though NightEnd does in fact have a single probe running around the inside of that base. So now an SCV coming out from MorroW. MorroW perhaps wanting to do some scouting of his own. Taking a look at NightEnd. NightEnd opting to go for a cybernetics core. So a pretty standard build here. And noticing that he wants probably some sentries or some stalkers. Well, after this, we'll either see if it's going to be an additional gateway or going for a robotics facility. Both options very, very viable. Gateway obviously opening for that earlier rush a little bit more than that robotics facility, as a robotics facility means that you will not be able to produce those immortals are just not going to be pumping out as quickly. Back over here, MorroW now massing up Marines, does not have a tech lab, and now has an SCV just running around in circles. So this SCV running around in circles, we'll see what's going to be happening. 2 Marines already coming up the ramp, so those Marines going to try to head up that ramp and perhaps try to get a couple of those probe kills down. Zealot already being produced, and no bunker being placed down anywhere yet. And now we have a secondary gateway, so NightEnd going for a dual gateway off of a single cybernetics core, and already researching the warp gate ability. So if that warp gate ability is being researched, that definitely means that NightEnd will be able to produce units out of those gateways really quickly, as the warping ability, I believe, is faster in producing units than the gateway, even with the cooldown. Back over here, Marine now gonna head up, making sure that there's no sort of proxy gateway anywhere over here, and making sure that there's nothing that he really has to be worried about. Bunker now being placed down, so MorroW going for a very, very aggressive fast expansion, only producing off of a single barracks. MorroW sitting on a 400 mineral army compared to NightEnd's 150, so that's 1 sentry and 1 zealot versus 9 marines, so definitely much stronger. However, now we're going to 4 gate, so NightEnd obviously already going into a 4 gate strategy, meaning that he's going to be able to mass up those units very, very quickly. I do not think that MorroW, I can already tell by the stage of the game that MorroW is not going to be able to pull out of this if NightEnd does in fact decide to push. There's only a Marine sitting in that bunker, no Marauders, not enough time for the tech lab to be able to research those concussive missiles. And now in comes 2 Zealots, 2 Sentries, and now all those units being transferred into warp gates already. So going to have an additional 4 units warping in on that backside, and we'll see what's really going to be happening. Zealots and Sentries with a single probe down here. Probe warping or bringing in an additional pylon, warping in more units. 2 Zealots or 3 Zealots and 1 additional Sentry. Is he going to use Chrono Boost? Has plenty of energy for Chrono Boost. Should be able to just remove the cooldown on every single one of those buildings. And now with that pylon in the center of that map, things are not looking good for NightEnd. Yeah, incoming more Zealots. Army size 1100 versus the 850 of NightEnd, and now with that Guardian Shield, those Marines will be dealing a dinky 4 damage a shot. I think that's one of the problems with that Sentry and that Guardian Shield against Terran right now. Terran players just really have no way to really get around that Guardian Shield. Ooh, very nice use of force fields, preventing those SCVs from being able to repair. and MorroW already has to say GG, not expecting such a heavy harassment and heavy rush coming in from NightEnd. So NightEnd taking game 1 in this best of 3 matchup between MorroW and NightEnd. Stay tuned for game 2.